Hi everyone, I'm Marcy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a perfect pie crust that's flaky and delicious every time. And as a bonus, if you watch to the end of this video, I'm going to share my recipe for a scrumptious classic apple pie. But first, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get baking. With Thanksgiving coming up, I figured I had to share my pastry recipe with you because in my family, we bake a ton of pies, and I'm not exaggerating. Just look at this photo from my mom a few Thanksgivings ago, and now I've basically turned into her. Now, we've never used a store-bought pie crust because it's so easy to make. All you need is a cup of flour, half a teaspoon salt, a third of a cup of butter or shortening, and a couple of tablespoons of ice cold water. Now that's just for one pie shell. And I always recommend making enough for an extra one because you just don't want to struggle when you're rolling it out to try to make it reach the edge of your pie plate. And you can always just cut off the excess, and that way it looks a little prettier as well. But again, you don't have to do that. That's just what I do. And today, since I'm going to be making an apple pie, it's going to have the crust on the bottom as well as the crust on top. So I'm going to be tripling this recipe just so that I have plenty of extra dough to work with. Hope that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
I start with 3 cups of unsifted flour. To it, I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I'll give it a quick mix. Then you cut in the butter or shortening. I'm using shortening today, and this is 1 cup that was chilled in the refrigerator. And you just want to break it up with a pastry blender or fork until the mixture is crumbly.
This is the consistency you're going for. It's well mixed, but you can still see the little clumps of butter or shortening in there. And at this point, we can start adding the water. And here again, you want it to be really cold because you don't want it to melt the butter. So you can see that I'm even using ice in mine. Now I'm going to be adding 2 tablespoons for each 1 cup of flour. So that means I need 6 tablespoons of water. And at first, it's going to seem like that's not nearly enough water, but once you start working it in there and pressing it together, it will be. And if you find that you absolutely have to add some water, go ahead and do that, but just add a teaspoon at a time so that it doesn't get too wet.
This dough is done. At this point, you can start rolling it out, or you can wrap it in plastic wrap and let it chill in the refrigerator until you're ready to use it. When you chill it, even for just 15 minutes, it becomes easier to work with. I went ahead and split mine in 2, shaped them into balls, and let them chill for a bit, so now I'm ready to roll them out. I've got this handy rubber pastry mat that I got years ago, and it's so helpful when you're rolling dough. It lets me know how far I need to take it. Since I have extra dough, I'm purposely going to make it larger than I actually need, and then I can just cut the excess. This looks good to me, so I'll go ahead and flip it over into my pie plate. I'll carefully fit it in. Then I'm going to take a small paring knife and cut the excess. But keep in mind that it will shrink a tiny bit when baking, so I cut it just past the edge.
If you're making a pie that just calls for the bottom crust, at this point you just poke a few holes on the bottom and then you crimp the sides with your fingers or with the fork, and then you just follow the directions from whatever recipe it is you're making. Some recipes may have you add the filling first and then bake it together. Others will have you bake the pie crust first and then add the fillings after the fact. But either way, you're good to go with this pie crust, and I think you're really going to love it. I'm going to set this aside for now because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be making an apple pie, so be sure to stick around for that. And as always, I'll put the measurements and ingredients in the description box below.
You'll need 6 tart apples. Peel them and then cut them into thin little wedges and place them into a large bowl. Add a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice over them and mix them around so they're well coated. In a separate bowl, combine 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 3 tablespoons flour, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg. Then get 2 tablespoons of butter and a knife ready. Add a layer of apples into the bottom of the pie plate. Sprinkle a generous layer of your sugar and spices mixture over it. Then add some dabs of butter throughout. Add another layer of apples and keep repeating the process until you've used up all the ingredients. Then roll out the dough for your top pie crust. Flip it over and cover up the apples. Take a paring knife and trim the excess. Crimp along the sides. I like to do this with my fingers. Cut some slits on top so that the steam can escape. Brush the entire top of your pie with an egg wash or evaporated milk. Bake at 450 for the first 10 minutes. Then lower the temperature to 350 and let it bake 30 to 40 minutes longer.
And there you have it, an irresistible classic apple pie with the absolute best pie crust. It's simple, delicious, and definitely worth the effort. Thank you so much for watching. And as we head into Thanksgiving, I just pray that you would have a healthy, safe, and happy Thanksgiving, and that you would find many reasons to be grateful.
If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to check out my Thanksgiving playlist. You can also follow Marcy Inspired on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, blessings from my kitchen to yours.